the notion, and I know this drives you crazy as well, the notion that Russia is some a bunch of hillbillies, barely, they could barely make a wood wash tub is Russia, probably of all countries in the world, including China, has the most robust defense industry capability to produce weapon systems, artillery shells, ammunition, planes, rockets, etc. They don't need anything from China. China needs. Russia has proven hypersonic missiles. And hypersonic missiles, at least three varieties, used to defeat maritime threats, such as a carrier battle group steaming towards Taiwan. Does not have a reliable, proven, battle-tested hypersonic missile. So, which way do you go? Do you go with the unproven or the proven? Where do you go with the proven? And I think that's one of the things that's being actively discussed. Putin and the defense minister was discussed between Putin and Xi Jinping, because people need to appreciate we're seeing something that is unprecedented in history with respect to Russia and China. Never have they come together to collaborate across the entire spectrum of economic, political, diplomatic issues. They are now. In fact, it was the entire premise, one of the underlying premises of U.S. foreign policy over the last 70 years, to keep them separate. The United States loved playing the role of Conrad Dobler, that old NFL football player who was notorious. Hey, did you hear about your sister? And people would start fighting. Well, we did our best to keep the Chinese and Russians and others. We did our best to keep them separate. And when Nixon went to China in 1972, in February, he made the point that, we're going to recognize the one China policy, which means that we recognize it is part of China. It is a province of China in the same way that Hawaii is a state of the States. And now that's all reversing as far as the U.S. is concerned, and yet Russia and China are now working together in tandem. So I think this is not just a change. This is, as I've talked about before, a game changer. Brother, I think this is a game changer. I mean, it's a whole new game, a whole new world.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, because our Conrad Dobler tendencies. That's, again, for the audience, that's a reference to American football and a football player who's notorious about creating problems on the field. It's not something that's part of history. It's happening now. We saw in June of 2021, Joe Biden tried to put a wedge between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping in a reference he made after their meeting in Geneva. And then just recently, Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, has said that Russia should be afraid of being swallowed by China. Again, the idea to plant in the minds of people that there's nefarious intent on the part of China and that Russia should not be linking up. So, they are doing the Conrad Dobler thing still. But let's get back to defense industry for a second, and then maybe we'll leave it with this. A Wall Street Journal reporter was recently arrested by the Russians in Ekaterinburg. Evan Gerashkov. I could be butchering his name, and I apologize to his family if I did so. And the city of Ekaterinburg, there is a defense industry. There's a lot of defense industry, but one in particular produces caliber missiles, which are missiles used by the Russians to great effect in the war on Ukraine. And there's been a lot of speculation that Russia's running out of missiles, and that this could have an impact on Russia's ability to win this conflict. And so it would appear that information about the ability of this facility to increase production capacity would be of great interest to the United States. Also, I would imagine that a reporter knows not to receive this kind of information, that the quickest way to be arrested and go to jail is to act like a spy, and receiving classified information is a spy-like activity, something that Nicholas Danilov learned the hard way in 1986 when he met with the CIA chief of station, Murat Naturbov. He met with case officers. He helped them craft mechanisms to make contact with somebody for the purpose of gaining classified information. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, sometimes it's a duck.
Right.
I think that Evan, at a minimum, crossed a boundary. But we also know since 1996 that the CIA has admitted that it uses journalist cover for its officers in areas of particular difficulty, and Russia would be such an area. To think that a CIA case officer gets assigned under diplomatic cover to Moscow without the Russians knowing exactly who he is not believable. I think the Russians know exactly every single case officer sent to the embassy.
Right.
And so this would be one of these cases where the CIA might want to go out and recruit somebody who's outside of the embassy who might escape notice. This is why journalists have always been against this. They said, if the CIA uses a journalist as a cover, you've destroyed the credibility of all journalists, because every nation will have every right to view every American journalist as a potential CIA agent. But what are your thoughts about this, about a couple things? The CIA using journalistic cover, and do you think that Evan was a journalist under CIA cover, or do you think he's totally innocent, and et cetera?
Well, I don't necessarily think he's innocent, but I checked with one of my buddies, retired CIA chief of station. Last posting was in The Hague. And, he said that there are some real obstacles, that basically he described it as it's illegal. He says you'd have to go through an enormous approval process just to use a U.S. journalist. But then he made the point also, he says, but from a tradecraft standpoint, it's stupid. If you're in a high threat environment, that guy's already walking around with a target on his back. Why in the world would you take that kind of risk? Use a foreigner, recruit a foreigner from some other country that might actually have, a reporter for the India Times. That would be a great opportunity. You might be able to get away with that. So there's a lot, I think, about this story that we don't know. As you read Gershkovitz's reporting, boy, it's terrible. I mean, he was basically a tool. I mean, he was not what I would call a grounded journalist. He was more like what's the propaganda spin message that I have to put out today? And so he would do that, and I could see naturally from the Russian standpoint, they say, oh, this guy's got to be a spy. He can't be that stupid. Well, I never underestimate the power of being stupid. Okay, there is always that risk. But notice the difference. That Gershkovit's been picked up. Oh, the Western media. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, he was. It's okay for him to try to get that information. However, with respect to our boy Jack Teixeira, hey, this guy shouldn't be doing that. We, the media, have to clamp down on this, even though we've been looking at classified information. I mean, just the hypocrisy of it, the contradictions inherent. I've always been a firm believer that we need a press that can get access to classified information by whistleblowers and publish it, on the understanding that as a whistleblower, you are taking upon yourself the risk. Yes, you're breaking the law. You're going to face the potential of being punished, but you have a good reason that you want to get the information out there because the public needs to know, as was the case with the Pentagon Papers, and as others have tried. But don't harbor any illusions that being a whistleblower is going to result in you getting a parade and being carried around on people's shoulders. If the information you're really bringing out is damaging to the status quo, you're going to be mercilessly attacked. Not that you would know anything about that.
No, I've never. Not me. No, but yeah, I
Always
mean,
some notes
look,
on it.
one of my heroes is Dan Ellsberg, and I consider him not just a mentor, but a colleague and a friend. And unfortunately, in case the audience doesn't know, Dan Ellsberg has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he's literally on his deathbed. But the thing, one of the great lessons in life that Dan Ellsberg gave was something that happened before I knew him. But I've seen the film clip and I watch it often because it's such an important lesson, and it goes to exactly what you've talked about. He's going up the steps of the court. He's facing trial for treason, for leaking the Pentagon Papers, which were documents that exposed the lies of the American government in Vietnam. And someone said, "Aren't you worried about going to jail?" And he said, "Wouldn't you go to jail if you could stop a war?" And if you think about the courage and the integrity, the honor behind that statement, and it's exactly right. If you're going to be a whistleblower and do it in the right cause, understand that you could go to jail. You could lose everything. But then it's like asking a Marine or a soldier or a sailor to give their life for their country. It's the equivalent of throwing yourself on that hand grenade or doing some heroic act in combat. To be willing to pay the price for exposing lies to make your country a better place, to make your country live up to the aspirations it claims to me, it's the height of heroism. And Daniel Ellsberg is a national hero, and he's an international hero. And I just hope that people remember him fondly, remember him well, remember the precedent that he set. And Larry, I count you in that company as well. Brave people who step out there, do the right thing. Look, this is a conversation that we're going to be able to have over and over again. I thank you very much for coming on today and giving us your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Johnson, a veteran intelligence officer, thank you very much. And, I think we just need to reflect on the conversation that we just had and the things that Larry has, helped bring to light here. We live in difficult times, and there are people who are desperate for information. We're desperate to empower ourselves with this information. But it's imperative that we ensure that we do the due diligence, the quality control, and we understand why the information is being made available, how it's being made available. And this entire escapade regarding the leaking of information to the press that has recently taken place puts all of this on display. And we're going to be wrestling with this issue going forward. But I think today we had a very useful discussion about this. And again, I thank Larry for coming on. I thank you guys for watching. Remember, knowledge is power.